They spent 7 years trying to deliver proof of stake to the market, and at the end of the rainbow, what did they give? The Hotel California of the cryptocurrency industry. You can check in, but you can't check out. You can't unlock your Ether. So Vassal was a natural continuation of what was started with Alonzo. So Alonzo was a very conservative hard fork, and it brought the extended UTXO model and Plutus to Cardano, but it didn't bring a lot of extended functionality like reference inputs or these types of things. And what we wanted was that the DeFi community could work with us and others, and we could kind of come up with some SIPs that would expand the language in the direction that they needed for them to be able to build dApps. It's a product of about a year worth of effort and a standards process, SIP 31, 32, SIP 33, SIP 40. And effectively what these have done have created new capabilities in Cardano scripting language that have already been reflected in a lot of dApp developers seeing substantial improvements in the reduction of transaction size, as well as the reduction of cost. It also brought pipelining. And what pipelining basically did is make Cardano better, faster, and cheaper. So these two things together were a very significant upgrade, and what's going to happen is a huge wave of people building on Cardano are going to be able to take advantage of that and ultimately have an easier time writing dApps and applications. So if you zoom out, it's not a big deal. It's just an iterative, natural improvement to things, but very locally, it's the threshold upon which a lot of projects were waiting to launch. And so it's very exciting from an ecosystem viewpoint. It was the community that needed and demanded these capabilities and features, and it's just an example of an iterative instead of a revolutionary roadmap. So things like Ouroboros or Extended UTXO are completely new innovations, and what ends up happening after you introduce them is that there's a collection of things you guessed right on, some you didn't guess so right, and some unfinished business. And the point of things like Vassal is to basically clean those things up and make it better for everybody. And then if you know you've done it right, if you look 3, 6, 9 months later and you have a lot more chain traffic, a lot more dApps, and ultimately a happier community. Well, two eras have started concurrently, the Basho era and the age of Voltaire. So in November, there's going to be a very aggressive outlining of what Voltaire needs from our view, and then obviously the community fills in all the details. Now Basho is just about better, faster, cheaper, so that true scale, and there's a lot of different ways to cut that up. Input endorsers is one, Mithril is another, Hydra is another, sidechains is another, and just continued improvements in things like diffusion pipelining and iterative improvements in the software. So both of them are being built concurrently, which is expensive and time consuming, but you know, there's good people on both sides. And then there's also a lot of cleanup, partial delegation, something I've asked for years and years and years, and it shows you I'm not king of the world because we still don't have it. But hopefully that'll come in place sooner rather than later. And then other things about improving the level of decentralization with stake pools, and so some parameter changes, some fundamental changes to that model, and then also technology like Conclave I think will help tremendously. So there's no silver bullet to any of these things. It's just good old-fashioned hard work. What that does is it helps you get rid of a lot of bugs and security problems and gives you strong evidence that the protocol is what's called semantically correct. It's very important in an age of hacks that we do. Well, it's kind of silly to think that cryptocurrencies are divorced from the macroeconomic reality of the world. The stock market's down $9 trillion. Russia is deploying nuclear weapons to their western border. There's crazy stuff going on in supply chains around the world. You know, there's all kinds of geopolitical issues. U.S. economy is not as strong as it used to be. It's a tough time. It's a recession, and we're still dealing with the hangover of COVID. So this non-recession recession is pretty devastating for a lot of people, and we're still dealing with the consequences. We just lived through the largest wealth transfer in American history between the small businesses and poor to the wealthy. And that's going to cause a lot of problems. So crypto, I thought, would be counter-cyclic and would be a safe harbor for people to store wealth in. Unfortunately, people tended to treat crypto like a risk asset to shell off when macroeconomic conditions deteriorate. Part of that was because of the institutional participation, and part of that was also that we had a bull market which was blatantly irrational. Everything had a $10 billion valuation. You got pictures of bananas as NFTs selling for $1 million. It's not realistic or feasible. So all things considered, we're in a good place as an industry relative to what we've accomplished and how many people are there. I think 2021 was just a bit irrational in where it was at. And you know what'll happen is, just like I've been through 7 of these cycles since I entered the space. It's build a bear. It's a bear market, so you build in it, and then a few years later, you get back to a bull market. So I don't tend to worry about the cycles. I do tend to worry about the U.S. dollar. And they have this fantasy that all these new businesses will just magically materialize to replace it, when they've made it in many ways a very uncomfortable environment to start new businesses. Just look at the cryptocurrency industry and how we've been treated by some of the regulators. It's like, okay, well, you're welcome for the multi-trillion-dollar business. I guess we could take it to Singapore or something. So it's pretty sad in that respect, and that's the only way you get out of it. And if you have that mindset, you wake up and you can't tax your way out of it, and you can't grow your way out of it, so you just accept the default and the decline. So I don't really think crypto is the problem, and the price being down, if there's anything we've done as an industry from a technology viewpoint, an adoption viewpoint, a use and utility viewpoint, we're better today for most ecosystems than we were in 2021 or 2017 during the last 2 bull runs. But the issue is that the macroeconomic environment that we find ourselves in is incredibly fragile and unhealthy, and it's getting worse every day. So Don Tapscott wrote a book, I think it was Digital Asset Revolution or something like that, and he actually created a taxonomy, and he identified 9 different types of things a cryptocurrency could be as a digital asset. It's interesting asset when you have something that can wake up one day and be a commodity, wake up next day and be a currency, wake up the next day and be like a baseball card, and then be a security, and so it's a crazy world to live in if you want clear definitions of things, especially if you do regulation by buckets and you say, well, we regulate it one way if it's in this bucket, another way if it's that bucket, because it pops in different buckets all the time. So I think that we're starting to realize that as an industry, and we're starting to see that because it's very clear the difference between an NFT versus a security token versus a DAO token versus Bitcoin versus Ada versus Ethereum. And I understand that some agencies just think they're all securities. Okay. Some people think the Earth, it was created 6,000 years ago. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but there's this worship of developer accessibility, and there's this worship of first to market, fastest to market, not understanding that this infrastructure is being built for years. It's almost like a train company wakes up and says, we're competing with all these other train companies, so we got to get our train out before anybody else. Sir, what about the braking software? We don't have time to think about that. We just got to get the train on the tracks. What happens when the train crashes and all the people die? And so we said, look, let's get it right, get the right accounting model, plan for on-chain, off-chain, plan for verification, and then, you can always add more languages later on. You can add TypeScript, you can add JavaScript, you can add side chains that have these capabilities. One of the members of the ecosystem did that. DC Spark created an Ethereum sidechain, and suddenly we have Milkamada. More than one people in our ecosystem built stuff on top of it. They built bridges on top. I know those bridges exist because I lost money when they got hacked. But the people who work at core, they have to have social responsibility, realizing what they build, millions, if not billions of people will use, and if they fuck up, those people get hurt. At the very least, they lose money. Almost certainly, they lose trust, and in some cases, they actually die. I was asked in Cointelegraph in an interview, they said, how fast do you think you need to move? I said, would you like us to move at the speed of Luna? You could, of course, go replicate JavaScript if you want and live all the nightmares that ecosystem's lived for 20 years. Of course, you can go and try to build a giant Rube Goldberg virtual machine in the sky, as Ethereum has tried to do with the EVM. And again, you're going to run into tons of problems, and you're going to spend the next 10 years trying to undo all the mistakes that you did. And lo and behold, while they're trying to undo those mistakes, you know what happens? You slow down. They spent 7 years trying to deliver proof of stake to the market, and at the end of the rainbow, what did they give? The Hotel California of the cryptocurrency industry. You can check in, but you can't check out. You can't unlock your ether. It's custodial and it's illiquid. Meanwhile, we from 2020 on, people in this room are running the model. And yet they have the audacity to say we don't exist. They don't even know any of our economics research. I don't really think much of Solana. I mean, it doesn't come up. There's nothing on the technology side or any of these things. It's like they seem to have been very adept at growing an ecosystem. And, they certainly have big wallets and big aspirations, and they work really hard, and they've grown an ecosystem for better or for worse. I pay attention to layer ones that add something to the conversation. You look at Algorand, they add things to the conversation. Great VRF research, really cool stuff in the BFT space. They're starting to do the post-quantum stuff. It's real technology. Avalanche is real technology. Even Ethereum with the merge is like a blueprint on what not to do. Tons of great stuff out there. Small caps like Ergo, big caps like a Bitcoin, and every one of them gives something there. If somebody goes and builds something and makes a lot of value, and it's just on off-the-shelf stuff, and they're moving fast and breaking things, all the power to them. And if that community likes using it and that's their thing, all the power to them. There's no competition there because we have so radically different philosophies. Obviously, the applications and use cases that we would pursue as an ecosystem would be different from the ones they pursue. And because the Venn diagrams don't overlap, where are we competing? It is a case study on what not to do on network design and these types of things and how not to scale a blockchain. That's great. There's something to learn. And every now and then we have some good fun. Like a joke is not tribalism. It's not reality. It's okay to have the Nintendo cartridge and blow on it and tweet that. Because at the end of the day, does that really materially impact or affect anything? If Solana was working on an interesting thing that happened to overlap on our Venn diagram, and they came to us and said, we'd like to co-author a paper together or do that, sure. Why not? It's better for both of us. It works for both of us. It's one of those, now that Vossel's out, just kind of wait and see. And, we certainly contribute some, but most people in this room are doing their own thing. The biggest surprise for me was the convergence of metaverse, GameFi, and NFTs on Cardano. I keep saying it because it crept up on us. 6 million issued assets, 40% of all the projects on Cardano are NFT related. It's really cool, and it's super creative, and it's brought a lot of new actors into our space that have no prior blockchain experience, no prior blockchain connection, and they're finding Cardano as their first entry point. Used to be you started with Bitcoin, and that was the gateway drug, and that corrupted you. And then you go into the crypto space, and you're like a crypto alcoholic. But now we have people going straight from normal life into crypto life through NFTs into Cardano, which is so cool. That's broadening the tent in a certain respect. So you just got to watch it, and you just got to see how these things evolve and materialize. And there's a lot of things on the partnership side that I think will happen, especially as we talk about standards and certification, bridges, and we talk about multi-coin wallets and dApp certification and these types of things. It's going to bring a lot of transitivity between the ecosystems, especially small cap cryptocurrencies.